preaching as the act of saying, fine, I'll get hit by the bus first. I'll step out into traffic and I'll do it. And that is what this particular sermon feels like for me. I've been reading a book called Carry On Warrior by Glennon Doyle Melton, who you might know as Mama Siri on the internet. She's a modern day theologian, and her whole thing is based in, let's just be our real selves. Our real, messy, imperfect selves. Let's be honest in everything we do. And she tells the story about the day she decided to do this, because she was at the playground with her kids, and she had been working really hard to make her life look effortless with 3 small children. And she was beginning to get the feeling that all of the other parents around her were working really hard to make their lives look effortless, all the while knowing it was taking a lot of effort to do what they were doing. And so one day she decided that if the moms at the playground asked her how she was just going to tell them. So that day, a mom at the playground asked her, and she said, well, I'm a recovering alcoholic and a bulimic, and I haven't spoken to my husband in 2 days, and I think my child might not ever be potty trained. And the mother did the same thing, sitting beside her on the park bench, told her the honest truth. I'm worried about my marriage. My kid is failing the 3rd grade. How do you even fail the 3rd grade? She just needs to be able to locate Virginia and share construction paper, and I can't get her to do that. And she said that was the moment that she found her calling in life. That her calling in life was to show up messy and imperfect and not apologize for it, and to stop trying to make life look effortless, because life is hard. So I'm reading this book, and on paper I'm like, this is awesome. And still I'm running around like a crazy person trying to make my life look effortless. And until one day my sister says to me like a week ago, everything comes so easy to you. Like your hair just falls the way it's supposed to, and your dogs sit when you tell them to. And I'm like, whose life are you looking at? No. And I realize I've done her a huge injustice because I haven't been honest about the effort that it takes to do life. Because I've been trying to make it look effortless. I've been trying, I struggle with calling it perfectionism because I never feel like I even approach that. That's not the standard for me. But I do have ridiculously high standards, which means I'm never meeting them, and that's very frustrating for me. So, earlier this week, I hosted some other ministers in the area. We do some sermon planning together. And they came to my house, and they all brought snacks. And our friend had bragged to us about the snack that she was going to bring, and you should never do that. They're dates stuffed with blue cheese, wrapped in bacon, covered in brown sugar. Delicious. So she came in and she said, I bragged to y'all last week, and I burnt it. And she handed me the dish. And I took it, and I opened it, and they were burned. But whenever my grandmother would burn food, my grandfather would say, it's not burnt, it's just a little brown. So I said, that's not burnt, that's just a little brown. And I put it on the table, and I put toothpicks beside it. And I am here to tell you, it was delicious. It didn't taste burnt at all. It was really, really good. So later in the week, I was rushing to make a dish to bring to somebody else's party, and it was not at all going well. Not at all well. I couldn't get it. It just wasn't happening. You know, you have those days, it's just not happening. And as I was standing in my kitchen, having a breakdown because the stupid sweet potatoes would not cook faster, I thought, you know what? Last week she showed up with something she thought was totally inadequate. And it was exactly what we all needed. So maybe if I just show up with whatever I have, whether it feels good enough or not, it'll be exactly what someone needs. And I was able to breathe, and I took my sad sweet potato casserole to my party, and there were 2 other sweet potato casseroles there. And several people told me mine was the best. They probably told us all that. Doesn't matter, it's what I needed to hear. The point is, by every standard, Mary was woefully inadequate. She was young, she was poor, she was from not just the bad part of town, she was from the bad part of the country. Nobody knew her family. She had no education. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, to make her a good candidate to bear the Son of God. Not only that, she's going to visit Elizabeth. Elizabeth, who is an upstanding older woman, who has a lifetime of experience, whose husband, Zechariah, is a well-known, respected priest. And immediately Elizabeth says, "You're bearing my Lord." She doesn't say, "Really, God? Really? She gets Jesus and I'm stuck with John the Baptist?" It's not the way that conversation goes. Mary shows up, totally inadequate, completely not enough by everybody's standard, except God's. Except God's. So, if we learn nothing else from this scene, from the Magnificat, from Mary talking about this totally revolutionary holiday, let us learn that when we show up with whatever we have, even when it feels completely inadequate, the world can be turned upside down, because that's the God we served. It was never about us to begin with. It's always been about the God who created us, the God who has a plan for us, the God who will use us in all of our glorious inadequacy. But we have to show up, and we have to bring whatever it is we have, no matter how not enough it is, because in the hands of God, it's always more than enough. I invite the praise band to come back up. And I encourage you in this frantic week, when the house is not clean enough, and the shopping isn't done, and the presents aren't wrapped, and the cookies aren't baked, and surprise, the family's coming in, let it go. Don't vacuum. Take the nap. Tell them your preacher said you could. Because being who you are, being honest about the effort that life takes, is a gift that we can give other people. Being human is hard. So let's live by God's standard instead of the ridiculous standards we set for ourselves. Let's pray. God, you know